Welcome to another episode of Learn It From a Hermit, episode 4. If you're new here, this is a series where I spin a wheel with all the hermits' names on it, and then I see what that hermit can teach me about Minecraft that I don't already know. And with that being said, let's get into spinning the wheel. All right, who's it gonna be today? Here we go. All right, here it comes. Oh, Zedaph, okay. So this is actually going to be my introduction to Zedaph's content. I do know that he likes to do things a little differently. I've seen him in other Hermits videos and he seems to play Minecraft in a pretty fun and unique way. And now it's been like a week since I recorded me spinning the wheel. And I've watched a ton of Zedaph's content. I've watched all of his season 8, all of his season 9, and I've started on his season 10. Now instead of talking even more, I'm going to talk about what I learned from Zedaph. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to mention is from back in his season 8 with his wool farm that he called the wool wall. Here he showed me that you can lead a mob through a wall and connect it to a fence post and the mob will just float against the wall. I recreated this in a creative world and made it a little bigger, as you can see. This was such a fun idea, and this was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Zedaph's fun contraptions. So mine pretty much works the same as his. I'll just give a quick demonstration. So you have 3 of every single color of wool. Right now I have the grass blocks retracted into the wall because all the sheep have eaten it and have grown their wool. So I retract the dirt blocks back in the wall. That was really hard to say. Took me like 10 tries. But that way the grass will then grow onto these dirt blocks here. So when all the sheep have all their wool and they're ready to be sheared or shorn or whatever the right term is, you just walk up here, you press this button, and it's super satisfying. And then the blocks retract back in, all the drops flow down here. Now they're just down here, and I will flip this lever, which will then put their blocks back out so that they can eat the grass block, and then all the items will flow down into this chest here and collect it all. Now there's a few tweaks I could do to this, but that's not for this video. In season 8, Zedaph's whole theme was science. His base was a lab that he filled with machines and experiments, and I absolutely loved it. And there's a few small details in some of his machines that I know are going to help me in the future. One of those being his front door to his lab. He used an iron door exactly like this one, and he wanted to be able to press the button and have it stay open longer so he has time to get through it. And he didn't want any special blocks showing, or he didn't want the button down here, just a simple iron door with a button. And the way he did this was with bud-powered pistons. Now let me explain this real quick. So this button right now has no way of powering this piston, as you can see, but for some reason, if I were to hit this button and then give an update to this piston while the button is pressed, then the piston will extend like this. I press the button and then give the piston an update, then it extends. And what's funny is that even though the button isn't pressed anymore, the piston is still extended, but as soon as I update it again, it retracts. So let me just go through how he built this door real quick. So from the outside of his lab, he just wanted a button to be pressed. That way he doesn't have a pressure plate here, and then any mob can just step on the pressure plate and walk in. So you just press this button, and then this door will stay open until you press this pressure plate on the inside, and then it shuts. And how this works, you press the button, and then like we saw earlier, this piston was right here, 1 block apart from the button itself. So this block actually has no purpose in this redstone. It still works exactly the same. That way we can have our door frame looking perfect and no special blocks needed. So how this works is that this observer system right here, you have 2 observers that are facing into each other, constantly giving each other a pulse, which is why it's doing this right here. So what this is doing is basically just updating the air block, which is right next to the piston, which still counts. And the reason we do this instead of putting the observer directly into the piston is that if you do that, it will just start spamming the piston like so. So we don't want to do that. So it's amazing that we can just update the air block right next to the piston, and that will still count as the piston getting updated, so it can still be bud powered. So this might look a little confusing, but I promise it's very straightforward. So when we press the button, this piston extends, puts this cauldron right in place, and since it has water in it, then this comparator can actually read a signal from it. As you can see, if I take the water out, the comparator is no longer sensing any signal from the cauldron. So I put it back in. The comparator will turn on and then send a redstone signal into this block right here, which will then turn this redstone torch off, which will then unpower this block, which will then allow this redstone torch to turn on, which means that this block right here is being powered, which is keeping this door open. So as long as this redstone torch is powered, this block will be powered, which is powering this door, so it is open. And then this pressure plate right here has redstone under it, which then runs down here. It then powers this piston, pushing this cauldron back up, taking the signal away from the comparator, which then allows this redstone torch to turn back on, which then powers this block, which then unpowers this redstone torch and this block, unpowering the door, allowing it to close, just like this. Very, very cool. Another subtle tip that Zedaph taught me from one of his lab contraptions was from his villager killing station. I will just let Zedaph do the talking for this one.
This is where our zombie will start. This is where our villager is going to be stood next to the brake rail here. So let's just send the zombie on his way. He'll come along and stop. Excellent. Rah, rah, rah. Make the zombie a villager. I mean the other way around. Villager a zombie. But then he will not go. So to make him go, we need to pull that track back like that. A piston could push a block there. Or obviously we could drop something down. Now when we power this, it does go back round to the beginning. I've done this little thing here. I'll do my best to explain it. So we hit the button, ba-bam, ba-bam. You see, it pulls the track back, pushes the block up, and then the block goes down and the track comes back. Real nice. We can test it out with the cart. So we send it on its way. Excellent. It stops. Murdery, murdery, murder. And back we go on its way again. It's very nice.
So if it wasn't clear what the problem was, so we want the minecart to stop right here, like so. It'll stop on this block, but if I power this again, it powers the rail, but the minecart can't take off. But let's say we put a block behind it, then that block is kind of just nudging that minecart along when we power this rail, which is why Zedaph did the thing with the rail that I've replicated here. This sticky piston pulls the rail out of the way, as you can see, and then that block gets pushed up by another piston underneath. At the same time, this rail gets powered, so then, as you can see, we got our zombie with the greatest name ever right here. He turns our villager into a zombie villager. That way we can get our prices cheaper and our trades cheaper and stuff like that. And then when we want to heal our villager, we need to send Mr. Subscribe back to the original place where he came from, just like that. It works absolutely perfectly. And you might be wondering, why is this guy not like wandering off? Well, actually, villagers, zombie villagers, and I'm sure a bunch of other mobs actually don't pathfind over rails like this. And another little tip I learned here, this is actually a carpet that the zombie villager is standing on, because if you break this carpet, there's actually redstone. So if you put carpet above redstone, it's not like he's just gonna fall through it like he just did. So I learned all kinds of things just from these little contraptions in Zedaph's videos. I knew Zedaph was gonna be an interesting hermit to do a Learn It From a Hermit episode on, because he just does some crazy things with certain game mechanics and features that most people either have forgotten about or just don't know about. Things like this. Did you know you can give a skeleton a sword? I knew that some could pick up armor, but I didn't know some could pick up a sword. They even have a low chance of spawning with a sword. But anyways, here's another one. You can give a piglin a firework crossbow. Not much more to say about that. I just thought it was interesting. What other random objects can we give mobs, you might ask? Well, pipe down and I'll tell you. You can give allays armor with thorns on it, which will apply the thorns effect onto the allays. Not very useful, but still something I learned. And something similar that might be a little more useful, Zedaph taught me that you can dispense armor onto villagers. You can't actually see the armor physically on the villagers, but it's still interesting. So maybe you have a villager trading hall and you don't want your villagers to die. You can put some decent armor on them to give them a little more protection. Like I said, Zedaph does a lot of experiments and crazy things in Minecraft, and a lot of those things are done on mobs, with mobs, for mobs, in mobs. So a lot of the things I learned from Zedaph are mob related. So let's talk about some of the mob related things. Have you ever been in creative mode and seen these heads right here? Well, you may know that you can get each of these heads in survival. And the way you do that is by exploding each mob with a charged creeper. By the way, you get a charged creeper when a creeper is struck by lightning. And if you explode more than one of these mobs at a time, you're actually only going to get one head to drop at a time. Speaking of exploding creepers, if a creeper has any potion effects on it and it explodes near you, that will actually put the potion effects onto you. I haven't tested this with other mobs, but it might work the same. Let's see. Nope, it does not work. Yeah, a lot of these don't seem to be very useful, but if I've learned anything from Zedaph, it's that you don't have to play Minecraft the way it's quote-unquote supposed to be played for it to be super enjoyable. A couple more quick mob facts that I learned are from some of his Season 9 shenanigans where he did what he called Zedvancements. One episode, he wanted to stack as many entities on top of each other as possible. So here I figured out that mobs that are riding mobs, such as these striders, apparently can't go through nether portals. The other thing from this Zedvancement I learned was the fact that you can put a boat in a minecart. I thought this was pretty funny and random. And in another Zedvancement of his, he needed to get all the possible gifts from a cat when it sleeps in a bed with you. And to do this, he needed a cat in his base, so he placed some beds by his villagers because it's actually the beds that allow cats to spawn around villagers. This one actually can be useful if you need to get some cats for a creeper farm or something. Okay, it's that part of the video where we change things up and check out Zedaph's episode on the Imp and Skiz podcast. So let's see what he has to say.
You have found a way to be comfortable with your uniqueness, and you were kind of in this world now where it feels like uniqueness is frowned upon, or people try to push against it. What would you recommend if you were to meet a child who was like you and wanted to be unique but feels this like peer pressure around them to kind of conform and just do the same thing everybody else does? What would you say to that child?
It's difficult. It is really difficult. The pressure that you have to try and conform to something like that, it's strong. It really is strong. It's one of those things, I think you just got to try it. Be brave, try something, and hopefully you'll get good results. It won't be as bad as you thought. And I think as long as you're kind of being yourself and all that kind of stuff, you're doing fine, right? Because you're doing what you want to do. At least you're making yourself happy. I always just find as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing and I'm enjoying the video I'm making, I put it out there, and hey, apparently there are other people out there that must think the same way as me because they seem to enjoy it as well. So fantastic, just got to try, unfortunately. And that's the hardest bit. That first step is difficult, but once you start maybe seeing that people like you for who you are and for what you do, even if there's some people out there that won't like you for who you are, doesn't matter because you like yourself.
For anybody watching my content who is also a content creator or just wants to be someday, that is incredible advice. And if you're watching this video, you probably admire at least a few of the hermits. And if you think about it, every one of them is unique and they each have their own style. Even if you're not into content creation, it's great to just be okay with being yourself and not conforming to trends just because they're popular at the time. It's okay to do things different, and honestly, I think more and more people are looking for that these days, so I love this advice from Zedaph. I'll leave a link to his episode on the Imp and Skiz podcast in the description if you want to check it out. Now let's get back into some more crazy Zedaph things. There's a lot of things I learned from his Zedvancements in Season 9, so I'll mention a few more things from those. In the Zedvancement where he wanted to get 10 death messages as quick as possible, I learned that you can entity cram yourself by using 24 minecarts. I knew entity cramming was a thing, but for some reason, I didn't know that a player could die from it. This has some potential to be a really funny trap to set up for somebody. So if you put 3 different potions in a brewing stand and try to make them all into splash potions at once, does it work? Well, thank you for asking. Yes, it does work. Simple as that. Wow, we are moving right along on this video. Maybe we should slow it down a little bit. Never. I'll slow down when I'm dead. There's a couple things that Zedaph taught me about shooting things with a bow. He shows us in a video called Catching Arrows in My Teeth that you can somehow control where arrows go on your character's body when you're shot. He doesn't actually show us how he manages to do this, but I thought it was kind of funny. Another thing about bows is that you can shoot a lead and break it. I'm sure there's just some sort of minigame waiting to be made with this feature. And the last one, which turned out to be very useful, as you probably know, if you get a skeleton to shoot and kill a creeper, it gives you a music disc. Well, Zedaph and Ren took this to the next level when they piled a bunch of creepers up, put lava between them and a skeleton, then made the skeleton shoot a piece of TNT to light it.
He's tracking. There it is!
Yes!
Here it goes!
Yes, he did it!
And then we watch. Whoa! Look at all the records!
We are about to wrap up this episode, but I have a few more random tips I learned from Zedaph written down, so I'll just go over those real quick. But while I have your attention, I know sometimes people like to leave the video a little early and skip the outro, so I'll say this now. While I was making this video, I actually hit the 500 subscriber mark, so thank you so much for that. It seriously means a lot. Now make sure you go give Zedaph some support as well, hit the subscribe button and all that good YouTube stuff. I am new to Zedaph's content, but after making this video, it is safe to say Zedaph has got a new fan, and it's right here. I made it myself. So here are the last few tips I learned from Zedaph, and in no particular order, just completely random. I learned that you can craft magma blocks. So in season 10, Zedaph got the permits to sell blaze rods and magma blocks. And he mentioned that the two permits synergized well together, and I was like, what? How? So I looked it up, and it turns out that you can craft magma blocks using magma cream. So then I was like, where does the blaze powder tie into this? Well, it also turns out that you can craft magma cream with a slime ball and blaze powder, which I didn't know. I love the fact that this game is so old and this isn't a new feature by any means, and I'm still able to just now be learning little things like this. It makes me wonder, how many other things like this do I still not know? And that's what this series is for. Next up, we have colored beacons. So in season 9, Zedaph wanted to make a beacon out of a bunch of different resources. And most of these are just visual, by the way. You can't actually make beacons out of a lot of these materials. But he colored each beacon the same color of the material it was made out of by using stained glass panes. Now I noticed when he did this, it only changed the color of the beam by like a shade or two. But I know that the color of the beam can be changed from the default color to another solid color without having to fade into that color, if that makes any sense. So I wonder, do glass panes slowly change the color of the beam while fully stained glass blocks change the color entirely? And I've tested it here and that doesn't seem to be the case. That's kind of interesting. And lastly, we have a little tip when it comes to villager professions. You may know that certain villager workstations cannot be moved with a piston, but some can. So we can take the workstations that can be moved and save ourselves a little time by moving them with a piston to refresh a villager's trades, instead of breaking the workstation, picking it up, placing it back down, and repeating this 437,926 times. Very, very helpful. So that is gonna do it for this episode of Learn It From a Hermit. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know if you learned anything. As always, go check out all the links in the description. Go show Zedaph's channel some love. He's a very interesting person to watch. He's very underrated in my opinion. Thank you so much for 500 subscribers. That is absolutely amazing. Let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments and what I can do to improve. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.